Now moving to item 8, Parakiore accessibility design features, and we've got Craig Hutchings, Facility Establishment Program Manager. Craig, thank you. Are there any introductory remarks that you want to make to this report?
Obviously the report comes to Council following a request from the Finance Committee to provide some information around the accessibility offerings. The report contains all the information that was requested, so I take that as read. The two items of particular interest to the committee were the option to include the provision of family and parent change rooms. Point 3.4 of the report documents the generous provision of family change rooms, but pointing out that there is no provision for a parent room. There could be an option to add that, a parent room, but that would result in the loss of another space and a change in the actual scope. So we would need to seek advice about changing that scope at that time. So I did want to highlight that in terms of the general accessibility features. The second component, which has been of interest to Council, has been the provision of changing places, and I point out that the report highlights that we actually added, or there is two change rooms for high needs people with high needs in terms of disability, especially those people that need assistance getting changed. And as per advocated by Changing Places New Zealand, those change rooms are in addition to our standard accessible change rooms and not replacing our standard accessible change rooms. However, we will not be badging them Changing Places. There's a couple of reasons around that, and one of those being Changing Places operates a membership-based system, and for good reason, around safety, around cleanliness, around accessibility. These amenities being located within a larger aquatic amenity, and where there are staff constantly checking those rooms, we believe those concerns can be mitigated, and we will be promoting heavily to the disability community that those rooms are available, and therefore not adding them to the list of Changing Places site that's advertised nationally. So yeah, just wanted to highlight really those 2 points around the parents' room and also the Changing Places spaces, or the changing rooms for high needs people with higher needs. The second report, which deals with the hydro slides.
Okay, can we come to that separately?
Yep.
I want to deal with
Definitely.
item 8 first, and then we'll come to item 9 as
Definitely.
a separate
Yep.
matter. Yep. All right, so anything else on item 8? Nothing further from staff. Right, okay. So, Yanni, you've got questions? Is that right?
Thank you. Yes, I do.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the advice on the accessibility. I'm just interested in the family rooms or the parent rooms. So, it makes reference that the design process didn't identify a parenting room as a high priority, and the consultation with user groups, it didn't kind of raise that. But I just wanted to check: did we talk to any parents around what their needs were for the design? And if so, who did we talk to?
As you're aware, we've got John Hagan here today, and Atakaro led the design process. But I look back on the consultation that has taken place, and as you're aware, the project's been going on for quite some time, and there was extensive consultation with all stakeholders. I'm unaware of any specific consultations specifically with parents, but those stakeholders, being sports groups and the disability sector, had an opportunity to feed in into all aspects of design and all of those spaces. So while I can't speak to parents, I imagine that those groups would have been representative of families and parents who play sport and recreate.
Yeah, and did we check the design against our children's policy and strategy as a council? Like, do we have a process to check if it's consistent with that?
I'm unaware of that process, Yanni.
Okay. I guess I appreciate you've given some additional advice around the quantum, and I do note that we have put a parent room into Tauranga, and we have also got one in the art gallery. So it does seem like a kind of thing that you would do in a modern anchor project. So given that it hasn't been catered for, and given that it's got a cost range between 5,000 to 15,000, what's the best way if we wanted to agree to put one in, to do it now, so that we don't have to come back later? Can we do it on the basis of this report?
I think
do I need a separate report?
The report provides advice in terms of the best way forward for that is actually, especially if we're going to lose a space, which would require that, let's see whether there is a demand and make sure that and see whether not having a room is impacting non-utilisation of the facility. Because over the next 12 months, we will consult, as we've done with users, about how they wish to use these spaces, and we will get that feedback, and we'll be much better off making that change post practical completion from a cost and also effective utilisation of space.
If I can add to that in terms of the two questions that were asked this morning. So in terms of, Ian, if you want to come and answer the first question.
So there are two particular questions around, if there was a desire to make a change today, there are two questions that come out of that. The first of which is, does the information in the report allow us to pass such a resolution to make a change today? Are we able to do so from a legal and process point of view? And the second question is, if such a resolution were to be able to be passed and were to pass, would it be capable at this late stage in the development of the facility be capable of being implemented? So Ian, the first question is for you.
My advice would be to recommend that you don't make the change now. You've got staff advice in front of you, which says that it could raise concerns about not meeting the original design brief. They've set out a process in which this matter can be dealt with, which sounds reasonable to me. The costs are similar, whether it's done now or done later, and I don't think really you should make the decision now because of the concerns that have been raised by staff.
So does the information in the report allow such a decision to be made if there was a desire to make it? Or does it preclude that?
It doesn't preclude it, but what I'm saying is that the information in the report says that if you make that decision now, there will be concerns of not meeting the original design brief. You have to take that into account, but they're quite clear in what they say. So my recommendation would be that, no, you don't have the information to make the decision now.
Okay, so we do not have the information in front of us, in your view, to make a decision today to incorporate a family room or a parenting room into the facility.
Correct.
Thank you.
So can I signal a motion to...
All right, I'll come to you in a moment, Yanni. I want to get an answer to the second question first. So the second question is, if such a decision were made, would it be capable of being implemented?
If a decision was made in terms of it is capable of being implemented, in terms of based on the feedback we provided yesterday, in terms of there's no cost advantage to doing the work before it opens versus retrospectively, and that's because if we do the work now while we're still in the construction with CPB, there'll be additional costs as we work through margins for them. We could do the change after for the same price, if not cheaper, after we open the facility or after council gets the building. What it does depend on is the repurposing of which space within the facility we would use, whether there's services in those rooms or not. So whether there's drainage, hot, cold water. So that's dependent on the cost. That's why yesterday it was dependent on that. So there's a few things that go into it, but it's a rough. If we were repurposing a room that had all this facilities and services in it, then it would be between 5 and 15, but we need to determine which room that's going to be and what the priority is in terms of the parents' room or not. The other thing, if I could add, in terms of, because this is a large facility, it's not like the library it has in terms of wet side when people come from swim. It's got change tables within those family change areas. In terms of, it has a large cafe for heating up food, milk. It has a large spaces where there's informal hangout spaces throughout the facility, whether it's on the ground floor, floor 1, floor 2. So it has a lot of the facilities that are in a parents' room. And so that's why traditionally there's not parents' rooms within large metropolitan rec and sports centres.
All right, thank you. So Yanni, I'll now come back to you. Aaron, I'm noting that you've signalled a question as well, so I'll come to you in just a moment. Yanni, back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the frustration is that this was probably raised about 2 years ago when we first saw the designs to that accessibility committee. And now we're in a situation where so much has happened that we're being told that it's not practical to do it now without changing the scope. So, but, you know, I think...
Is this a further
the
question?
Advice from staff,
or is this debate?
Is what it is.
Sounds like we're debating an amendment that hasn't been put yet.
Well, can you just tell me what? So, if we wanted to change the scope of the project, because that's one of the concerns that you've raised, do we have to go back to central government and say, can we please put a parenting room in? We think this is an oversight, and then what's the process to get approval to change the scope in terms of our other partners?
John O'Hagan here from Otakaro. So under the agreement that we have between Otakaro, representing central government and council, material change needs to go back to both the council laws for approval for change and ministers for approval to change. Now, the definition of material change would obviously need to have a look at what, you know, including a parent room as a material change. I would hate to say now it is or it isn't, but it would be something that would need to be considered.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Sam, you're signalling that you're happy to move the staff recommendation. Yeah, all right, great. Other questions? Aaron.
Yeah, it's great that everyone's keen to move on, but there's a few bits to cover off here. Just looking at the size of the report. With the changing places, why is that not a decision of the council? I would have thought that's almost a political decision to decide whether we embrace changing. Sorry, it's mumbling at the back. What?
Yeah, continue with the question.
Why is that not a political decision to decide whether we embrace that or not? Because we've had a presentation to the Disability Working Group and we thought it was pretty good. The rest of the table hasn't seen it, but they probably should see it before we decide whether the facility embraces that or not.
Certainly, the report provides I suppose, recommendations from officers, but if the councillors wish to progress that down that road, then a specific report could be provided around that if that's what councillors wanted.
Yeah, because there's the chart where it says if it was changing places, the difference there would be. There was only a few, and everyone will know them because they would have all read it, but they're like the adjustable basin height, which to some people in wheelchairs is quite important, and the toilet height. So there's some aspects of changing places that are quite important to the Disability Committee, which won't be included here.
Yep. So the key one for us, which is signalled in the report, is the placement of those change rooms right next to the aquatic sensory area, yep. and Aaron, as you were, the changing places is specifically around those people with complex and multiple needs, and that may preclude somebody who is actually who is using the aquatic sensory area and a parent who just needs to take a child to a quieter space, who's using the aquatic sensory area and those change rooms are placed right next to that space. That changing places system may preclude them from accessing that space, and so we're suggesting that the amenity does provide what changing places needs, but from the best use of that space within this facility, we don't need to make people apply for membership, and that's all the report is saying. But if councillors wish, as you say, if that's a decision of council, well then we can have a look at it.
Yeah, but given there's staff right there, it is for those that are unaware, it's a swipe card to get in for reasons that changing places will explain to everyone if they're ever invited to speak to the full council. But staff could have that card and could swipe anyone in if need be. So that could be quite easily solved. That part, but there's reasons why it's a swipe system, and I think the full council need to understand that before we either decide to embrace it or not to embrace it.
And yeah, and that can
We're going
be.
to have it at the stadium.
Yep.
And if Christchurch ever wants to host major disability events, I think we should be best practice. And then when you go through the rest of the report, there's an alarming amount of red writing and best practice writing in the report.
So is this something that would be better dealt with by way of a briefing? Because, I mean, this is the wider issue of accessibility and...
Andrew, if we could, that this actually doesn't get accepted today. The report, the entire thing gets sent through to the Disability Working Group to be, and it's going to need a minimum of a couple of hours to go through it line by line to make sure that we're really happy with all of the answers, because some of them are a little ambiguous because they don't guarantee the outcome. And for instance, everyone would have noted that the ramp angle is below standard, but it is below standard. And whereas it's recommending in there it should be standard or above. So that's the ramp into the pool.
Okay, so there's some detail detail that needs to be gone through.
Otherwise,
and clearly
why
that needs
ever
to happen
have
in a
that
different forum than here.
if you don't use it to go through stuff like this.
So what you're wanting to do, by the sounds of it, I'll make a suggestion, is that we receive the information in the accessibility design features report and refers the report to your committee for further consideration.
Well, for a thorough workshop, and anyone else is welcome to come
For a
along.
workshop, okay.
But it needs to be gone through line by line. There's too much stuff in there for, and I don't know if everyone here has read it, but if they have, then everyone would be saying yes.
All
it
right,
needs to
so
go
why
there.
don't we do that then? So
Guaranteed.
change recommendation 1, and Sam's indicating that he'd be happy with it. So receive the information in the Parakiore Accessibility Design Features Report and refers the report to, what's the name of your committee?
The Accessibility Regulatory Working Group.
Okay, so that one.
Yeah.
For a workshop to which all councillors will be invited.
Well, yeah, they can if they want, but it will be long and tedious, this particular one, and I think it needs to only not be part of one of the regular meetings. It needs to be separate and just gone through all of these line by line.
So let's do it through your committee. Let's do it in a way that anybody who wants to can attend, whether they're on your committee or not, because this is important. And then, obviously, if your committee wanted to make some recommendations on the back of that workshop through a formal meeting, you could. Or if there was anything that you wanted to bring back here that was relevant for this committee, you could. I don't think it stops us from receiving the report. It's just a further piece of work to make sure we get the best out of the work that's been done so far, the expertise that sits and the interest that sits in your committee, and also the stage that we're at in the development of this facility.
Okay, and then how do we deal with changing places? So we need a presentation to the full council, and then we need to decide whether it's something we embrace as a council or we don't embrace as a council.
So is
once we
that
have all the
something that comes
information.
through your committee as well?
I'm asking you.
Do you make a recommendation?
I mean, does that need to be like a Tuesday briefing so everyone knows what changing places is and has a clear understanding? The woman who runs it from up North Island, she's more than happy to come at any time and present to full council.
So request a briefing be arranged. So is there a resolution 2 that you want to put in there as well?
That before a decision's made to use it or not use it, that there's a briefing made to full council that would then inform a paper that we would decide one way or the other.
All right, so
Because
we need
it's quite
some
an
wording.
important international standard that we should should have full information on.
All right. So receive the information, refer the report to the Accessibility Regulatory Working Group for a workshop to which all councillors will be invited. And then I think we're probably moving to a third resolution relating to changing places.
Thank you.
I might come back to you for wording in a minute. And then a new number 3, request a briefing to the full council.
A presentation from
By, what are we going to say, by changing places?
Yeah, changing places NZ.
prior to any decision being made.
Yeah.
Prior to any decision making.
Prior to decision making on what? You want to be specific there.
Well, currently, the staff recommendation is that we don't have changing places in Parakiore, but is that the position of the council is the question. So without the council having full information, I don't know that we can make the decision.
Okay, the decision is only to receive the report at this stage.
Yeah, but by receiving it, don't we agree that it won't be changing places?
Okay, so we just...
Staff did say that it is a council decision. If council want to do something different to what's been done, we need to let them know and give direction ASAP.
So maybe we just put prior to any further decision making.
Unless you'd like to check with staff which process they want to see for guidance.
I mean, in my mind, we're just receiving information in a report. If we wanted to be briefed on any particular aspect that might then result in further decisions, that doesn't stop us receiving the information in the report today. But we also need to be aware that time is ticking, this thing is getting built, and doors are closing the longer we take to indicate any changes we might want to see. I don't think there's going to be an appetite to slow this down, slow the construction down in order to make changes.
Yeah, patching them as changing places we can do at any time. There are two. We would just need to consult with Changing Places organisation, because as part of the design, there are two elements which Changing Places have now updated, which is which are documented in the report, that we would need to find budget to enable that to occur.
So it's decision making around badging rooms. That's what you're talking about, the badging.
Yeah, but there are some fit-out features that would change about 3 or 4 things. It wouldn't change the cost a lot.
That's what I'm flagging. Yep.
Yeah.
So does what we've got there make sense or not?
Yeah, as long as, I mean, but you don't want to do it so late that you've then got to change all the basins and toilets.
So request an urgent briefing.
Yeah, I don't know when the fit-out stage of there would be. It would be towards the end of this year, I would have thought. But
Right, so around
they'll
badging
be ordering
rooms
stuff not far away.
and other accessibility design features.
Okay, around badging rooms and other accessibility design features. From a staff point of view, this makes sense. I mean, we're obviously doing this in an environment where we know that construction is continuing.
Yep. And the other accessibility features, we're talking about specifically changing places, not reviewing.
Do you want to put related to changing?
Yeah, I think that
Another
would
accessibility
be wise.
features
Yes.
related to changing places. Yeah.
Yeah, the workshop is not about getting things changed, it's just getting an insurance on all of those lines that have been marked, that what will be delivered is the right outcome, that's all.
All right.
It'll just take a lot of time. It's not a 10-minute thing.
All right, so let's look at where we're at then. So we're receiving the information in the report. We're referring the report, Aaron, to your committee, and we're requesting a briefing by changing places prior to any further decision making around badging rooms and other accessibility features relating to changing places. Now, Sam, you'd indicated originally that you were willing to remove the very simple resolution to receive the information in the report. It's now got bigger than that.
Can I just make one suggestion? Is that potentially we move on to the next item, and I'm happy to keep it, but I'd just like Nigel on that to have a 10-minute think, because I agree with you. I don't want to slow anything down with the project, but it's 3 I'm not overly clear on. So could we potentially do that, just so that even if it means Aaron goes and has a chat with them?
Well, does 3 potentially slow down the project, or does it not? I don't think we're saying stop doing anything. We're saying we want to be briefed so that if there's anything we want added in further in the development of the project, that can be achieved.
Yeah, I think in terms of we need to be really clear in terms of if we were to go with the changing places in terms of what the costs or change would be, and to bring that to the urgent briefing at the same time. So there could be decisions. So I guess in terms of the information to make any decisions that would be made at that point. So
if we said by changing places and council staff.
Yeah, so perhaps in terms of if we could take some time just to make sure we're really clear on the resolution, so everyone knows what we're doing and what we're getting, and then come back shortly. It won't take
All right, let's do that. So let's adjourn this item. Let's capture what we've got, come back with some further advice, and then we'll nail this at that time. That's fine. Tim, just one more thing on this one.
Yeah, look, so 3.13, Universal Accessibility Report by Barrier Free New Zealand. So I think as a council, we have to be very clear to our staff what the process is that we would be comfortable with, because as far as I've read, so we engaged, or Atakaro engaged Barrier Free New Zealand.
That's correct.
But there's another group that Aaron is saying, and it should come to his committee. So I'm just thinking, as we're building the Hornby Centre, we don't want to put our staff through this again when they think they're doing the right thing, and I believe they are, and we come out. So I think that we have to get a clear process of who should be involved and a list of the process.
Yep.
So this is just, this is
All right.
going on and on.
So let's have staff take that away. Come back to us when you're ready later in the meeting. And let's make sure that we're capturing the intent of what Aaron's asking for here in a resolution that means we can deliver, the briefing and the discussion that's needed without slowing anything down, or that's the aim anyway. All right, so we'll leave that with you. We'll adjourn this item and come back to it later in the meeting. All right.
So, the next item also deals with accessibility at Parakiore Recreation and Sports Centre.
It does indeed.
Sorry, Andrew, can I say on process, going back to number 8, maybe we better delay this report on the table until the next meeting, at which case we would have had the working group, because the working group won't have delegated authority to make a decision. If they have any recommendations, it'll have to come back anyway.
Can we get some advice back on, the best way to handle the matter that's been raised? That's
what I would do, lay it on the table and come back.
If you can come back with some further advice, we can do that when you bring that. And if that's the advice, then we can do that. So come back to us later in the meeting.
Yes.
And do you want to deal with item 9 at that time as well? Because it could be that.
My thought is if we deal with that now, if there's any other further conversations, we can come back.
Let's do that. So now let's move then to item 9. We'll come back to item 8 when you've got that further advice.